NRATV with Bill Whittle.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hot Mike Show. I'm Bill Whittle here from Los Angeles, sitting in for Hot Mike, who apparently was trapped inside a tanning booth, and we didn't even know about it until the smoke detectors went off. So he's not going to be here today. We expect him back on Monday. We've been talking a lot about the froth and the anger and the resentment and all of the rest of this stuff that is just a daily part of our lives out here in Los Angeles, especially as conservatives in Los Angeles, but for everybody in the country as well, having to listen to this mockery all the time and so on. And so today we're going to have a little more fun with this because one of the things that we discover when dealing with our progressive overlords is that they're very, very good at dealing out mockery and insult, but not so good in terms of taking them. So let's start with something that is just delicious. This is the kind of thing that just makes me feel good as a human being because it's instant karma is what it is. If you haven't heard of it before, it's called the Streisand effect. And CNN, with their intimidation of some unknown individual, has invoked the Streisand effect. And I'll get back to CNN in just a moment. Very quickly, the Streisand effect is called the Streisand effect because of Barbra Streisand. And Barbra Streisand, this 15, 20 years ago, there were aerial photographs taken of all of Malibu, all of it. Aerial photographs taken for a real estate developer or something. And Barbra Streisand said, I don't want pictures of my house being taken from the air. And she tried to make a federal case over it. And then it became a question of who owns the airspace over the coast and so on and so on and so on. But they call it the Streisand effect because prior to Barbra Streisand demanding that no one fly over her house, no one had flown over her house taking pictures. And I think somebody viewed that image 2 or 3 times. But once she decided to make a federal case out of it, it's viewed by thousands of people, maybe hundreds of thousands of people. And people like me in my private airplanes make a point to fly over her house as loudly as possible. Who does she think she is? She doesn't own the airspace above her house. So that's why it's called the Streisand effect. When you try to suppress something, you simply call attention to the suppression of it, and the publicity that you get is orders of magnitude greater than it would have been otherwise. So, on to CNN. As you may recall from the last several days that we've been talking about it, that some anonymous person on the internet put together a very primitive, crude internet meme. A meme is usually a picture, but sometimes it can be a little video message. And basically what they did was they took some footage of Donald Trump at a pro wrestling event he did several years ago, and in the crudest way possible, superimposed the CNN logo over one of these people in this tape that they had. And you see Donald Trump basically take this person down, throw them to the mat. So it's like he's taking down CNN, throwing them to the mat, and then he walks off with a big smile on his face. Donald Trump saw this video. There's thousands of them like this out on the internet, but you know Donald Trump. He saw it, he retweeted it, and then CNN lost their ever-loving minds. CNN, a gigantic news network with all of these resources, just massive headquarters in Atlanta, went on a witch hunt to find out who made this video. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. They went trying to find the person that put together this Donald Trump wrestling video, and they did find them. And then CNN said to this individual American citizen, if you do not apologize publicly for having done this, then we will reveal to everyone who you are, where your address is, what your phone number is, and so on, and you will deal with the wrath of the liberals and progressives in America. So this, needless to say, scared the daylights out of this poor American citizen, and this individual American citizen had to write a groveling apology to this giant corporate, enormous entity that had taken offense over one of the tiniest little, most harmless little video things I've ever seen. Now, the Streisand effect kicks in. CNN didn't like the fact that people were making fun of Donald Trump whipping CNN because CNN, we find out from James O'Keefe, made up basically the whole Russia story. So here's where it gets to be beautiful. The internet responds to CNN. There was a hashtag in Twitter called CNN bullying. and CNN blackmail, I think it was. And so, to make a long story short, one little video, CNN comes and responds with a sledgehammer, and then the internet fights back. So sit back with me and enjoy about 2.5 minutes now of Donald Trump thumping CNN as a result of CNN's heavy-handedness. We'll listen to a few, and then I'll come back in and talk over them.
Why aren't I 50 points ahead, you might ask? Well,
sorry to keep you waiting. Complicated business.
That's the original there, by the way, the Donald Trump wrestling piece. Look, here's something from 300. CNN getting kicked into the pit. This is Sparta. Here's something from some other wrestling movie, and this one's kind of interesting. Ooh, that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt a little bit. And I'm just letting them run, because what you're seeing here is really actually quite important. This is from the Avengers, by the way. And I'll tell you why it's important. It's important because this is the pop culture fighting back. And for the first time in my memory, the pop culture is fighting back on behalf of a Republican against the liberals. I've never seen it before. But these videos, and there are hundreds of them now, every single one of them shows not only Donald Trump winning this fight, but winning this fight in just an overwhelming fashion. I mean, just absolutely destroying CNN. And this move on the part of CNN, I think, is just a simple case of insanity. That's actually my favorite. You just saw CNN just crawling into its own garbage can. There's Donald Trump, knocks him out again, and so on. The week they had after James O'Keefe exposed them for understanding that the Russia-Trump story was nonsense and running it anyway, I think it left them so much in a panic that somewhere or another they decided to go after some poor guy. And you don't attack the internet, because when you attack the internet, you're attacking several billion people, and they will fight back, as you can see here. So that's the theme for today. And that is basically how thin-skinned the left is, and how unbearably, unsufferably pompous and arrogant they are. And in order to help me lacerate this gigantic bubble of pomposity and arrogance is my good friend Evan Sayet, coming to us also from here in Los Angeles, California. Evan Sayet's a stand-up comedian, a conservative stand-up comedian. He wrote a tremendous book called The Kindergarten of Eden, How Modern Liberals Think. And it's great to have you back on the show there, buddy. How are you?
You too, Bill. It's always good to be with you.
Okay, so Evan, I told you this. I think it actually shows up in the foreword of your book. I was very flattered by this. But you understand how liberals think better than anybody I've ever met. And I want to talk about the thin-skinned quality of them. So let's start with Meryl Streep. As you remember, Meryl Streep got up and made a speech after Trump had been elected, and she basically, talked about the president is just basically did the exact typical kind of dismissal, and just this sense of sneering superiority over Trump, and not just over Trump, but also over his supporters. And she said things like, if it weren't for we actors, then there'd be nothing in America but football and NASCAR and all the rest. But here's the thing, Evan. She said the first thing that came out of her mouth was, well, here we are. It was at a foreign press dinner. Here we are. It was the Golden Globes, I think. Here we are, the most despised people in America: liberals, celebrities, and foreigners. And I remember thinking, I got nothing against foreigners. They don't like it when the public doesn't like them, do they?
Look, you know my book, you know my theory. I don't know how far back I need to go. But modern liberalism is a mental disorder. All right, and it's a specific mental disorder. And what's interesting about this is that this mental disorder has existed since the dawn of time. It's called narcissism. And yet this mental illness only became first really observable in a bigger population, and then dominant and now epidemic during the modern liberal era. why should this mental illness that has always been around suddenly become, right after the start of the modern liberal era, the 70s, the culture of narcissism and the me decade, and now epidemic? Is because, as I say in my book, The Kindergarten of Eden, How the Modern Liberal Thinks, the modern liberal is morally and intellectually retarded at the level of the 5-year-old child. Well, Bill, narcissism is the natural and normal state of the 5-year-old child. Gimme, 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 more, more, more. I'm entitled. I'm great. I know everything. But because the modern liberal never matures beyond the level of the 5-year-old child, what's normal for the 5-year-old is a mental illness that they never pass through. And the narcissist is easily hurt because part of narcissism is the belief that the whole world is you, that you are God, and God can have no foibles. So they can't even stand a joke at their expense. We know that we're not gods. We know that our leaders aren't gods. So if you make a joke about George Bush, we laugh at them because you pointed out a real foible. It doesn't take anything away from our founding and self-belief. But if you make a joke about Obama, or if you make a joke at their expense, they can't laugh because they don't have foibles. And if they have foibles, then they're not what they think they are.
That's right. And if you look at shows like Jon Stewart's Daily Show, apparently somebody else has it now. Nobody even knows the guy's name. Bill Maher's show and so on. What you find from the progressive audience is this is a bunch of people who get together to laugh at the Rubes and the Hicks and the knuckle-dragging gun-nut savages out there. And that's a way for them to feel that they're more moral people and that they're more intelligent people, which is a sign of character weakness. However, on the other hand, just as you pointed out, if you look at a couple of leading conservative comedians, and there aren't many, but take Jeff Foxworthy and Larry the Cable Guy. These guys are parodying themselves. You know, you might be a redneck is basically insulting his audience, and the audience roars. They roar because they see the truth in it. It's a very different thing.
They can laugh at themselves, but on top of that, it's not even humor. It's not even wit. Whether it's Samantha Bee, there's no cleverness to it. And look, in my career, and I've been on the left. I'm sorry? I've been on the left.
It's just snark, Evan.
Well, it's beyond snark. It's often vitriol in the guise of humor. Saying Sarah Palin is a see you next Tuesday, or as Stephen Colbert did, that Donald Trump and Putin are homosexuals. There was no wit. There was no cleverness. There was no turn of a phrase. And in fact, there was a moment when Christopher Hitchens went on, I think it was still politically incorrect, I think before it was real time. And he said to Marr, "You're not a comedian." He said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You're not funny." He said, "What are you talking?" He said, "Anybody can do what you do. Watch this." And he turned around to the audience and he yelled, "George Bush is Hitler." And the audience cheered. And he said, "See, anybody can do that."
Aha. Now we get to the part where the cheese gets binding, because there is a pathology among the left. We knew about Bush derangement syndrome and so on, and they were cruel to that man, cruel to him. But George Bush, being a gentleman, didn't fight back. And being the president of the United States, I assume he thought he was above this kind of thing, and he's supposed to be. But in 2012, 2 days or 3 days after the loss of Mitt Romney to Barack Obama, I said the next president's going to come from the pop culture. And that's exactly what happened. So Donald Trump, Evan, Donald Trump is the bane of their existence because Donald Trump knows how to play this game, and he knows how to play this game better than they do. And I knew that the ground rules were different. Hang on just a second. I knew that the ground rules were different when Meryl Streep made this derogatory comment about a Republican. Imagine my surprise. But Donald Trump comes back with a tweet, with this amazing tweet. Do we have that? He basically tweeted that he, instead of just rolling over and taking it, the president-elect of the United States basically said, Meryl Streep, one of the most overrated actresses in Hollywood, doesn't know me, but attacked last night the Golden Globes. She's a Hillary flunky who lost big. For the 100th time, I never mocked a disabled reporter, blah, blah, blah. But here's the point, Evan. Republicans and conservatives and all of the people out there in red state flyover country are supposed to simply take this. And for us to dish it back is something they're not used to. It got deep into Meryl Streep, didn't it? That got under her skin when the president-elect called her a has-been and overrated. She never forgot it. She never will.
We tried civility. All right? Could there be anybody who wanted to be more collegial than John McCain? We tried propriety. Could there have been a nicer man on the planet than Mitt Romney? All right, we stayed above the fray and above the dignity, or where the dignity should be, of the office with George Bush. Now, finally, we have entered the fray. All right, now it's time, and for the first time ever, we have decided to bring a knife to a knife fight. All right, for all these years, they were in a knife fight, and we weren't fighting at all. We were playing by rules of dignity and standards, of collegiality. We were playing by, and there's a reason that Saul Alinsky made make the other side live up to their values, one of his rules for radicals. Because when you make the other side live up to their values and you have no values, that gives you the winning advantage. So, there are some people who complain that Donald Trump is operating beneath the dignity of the office. Maybe. But there's no other way to win this war without fighting it somewhat beneath our ideal standards. And I'll give you an example. In a time of peace, I think General Grant might have lost his job over being a drunk, right? But in a time of war, it was necessary to have him, so you lowered your standards and you allowed him to continue to fight. And had Abraham Lincoln said, you know what, I will not have a drinker in the military, the Democrats would still have slaves, right?
That's
in
right.
World War II,
instead he said, I can't spare this man, he fights. Now, their examples are everywhere, Evan. They're everywhere. And when we come back after the break, I want to talk about the basic progressive psychology and why the fact that criticism is something that bothers them very much, but the fact is that mocking them is something that they just simply cannot handle. And we've got a president who knows how to fight that fight. We'll get into the details of that with our guest, Evan Sayet, when we come back from this break. I'm Bill Whittle. This is Hot Mike on NRATV.